Good evening and welcome to the second of two Inside Government shows for the spring 2020 semester here at Cayuga Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station 89.1. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in the studio as our second guest of the season, but also on the first day, the superintendent of schools, Jeff Pirozzolo, who we've asked to give us an update on a number of fronts. Obviously, COVID is the chief issue of the ongoing pandemic, but he has had a busy couple of months since he was here in November, including controversy over a book in the high school library, the appointment of a replacement board member who recently resigned, and on top of all that, he has some new budget numbers because of the recently released New York State budget. Welcome back to the studio.
Thank you for having me, Guy. Again, second choice after Mayor Quill.
Mayor Quill won last year because there was a snowstorm.
So yeah, he couldn't make it.
Yeah, you won because of default. So at this stage, not that we're not exhausted by COVID, what are the district numbers? And I know you do on Fridays mid-afternoon, you send out a note to parents and give numbers, but where are we in relation to COVID at the Auburn School District?
Well, since our health department really is not quarantining and isolating,
and not doing contact tracing,
right? It's not really mandatory to report anymore, so we get straggling numbers, maybe 5 to 8 a week. But again, I think that we're moving forward to treating this more like the flu. If you don't feel good, stay home. When you feel better, you come.
And you're stressing that all the time.
Correct.
If you do not feel good, whether you're an employee
Correct.
or a student with a parent with a student, stay home.
Correct. We still ask students if they test positive, they have parents, please send the results to our nurses in our buildings. I don't know if it's happening all the time now.
So walk me through. So say I am a 9-year-old little boy right now, and I have been vaccinated, but my desk mate to my right has not been vaccinated, but is ill and tests positive. What happens to the little boy to the right? What happens to me? And what happens to the little girl to my left?
So you would still isolate for 5 days.
Me?
Nope, the person that tested positive.
So if I'm vaccinated as a 9-year-old, I do not have to be isolated unless I test positive.
So isolation goes to the person who has COVID.
Okay.
Now you're talking about quarantining.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine. But again, if you don't feel good or you have symptoms, we ask you to take a test. If you're not vaccinated, we would have you test on days 1, 3, and 5. As long as you're negative, you can still come to school.
And who does those tests?
Our nurses do them.
Okay. And so what happens to the little girl to my left?
She's way past she's over
whether
3
she's
feet.
Vaccinated or not vaccinated.
She's over 3 feet away.
So it's only the adjacent
correct
student. Okay. And that's at all schools, elementary, middle school, high school.
And again, it depends on the distance between you and the person that tested positive. If you're over 3 feet away, you do not need to quarantine or even test. It's 3 feet and closer. So we try to keep all of our desks at 3 feet or more apart so that we don't have to. And again, we really aren't quarantining very much at all. If there is, again, what we call an exposure, we will notify parents. Say your child's been exposed. They can still come to school. If they test on days 1, 3, and 5, they're negative, they can still participate in school.
Okay. So you don't have any short-term worries. I know we had Omicron going up, and while deaths are still high here, you do not have and we'll have Kathleen Cuddy here on Thursday, you do not have a short-term concern that you'll have to go remote because of COVID.
No, I do not.
Busing's a different situation.
Correct.
We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So I mentioned the county is not doing contact tracing. Does that mean that you are?
So we're not doing, again, school districts do not have to do contact tracing. This is the guidance, right? But we still have to notify parents if there's a close exposure, which is the definition of contact tracing.
Okay.
So we still do contact tracing, but we're not doing it for quarantining purposes. We're doing it to contact parents, saying to parents, your child may have been exposed. As long as they test on days 1, 3, and 5, they can continue to come to school, and they don't have to quarantine.
And vaccination rates right now among your teachers and your staff, do you have an idea? I know
We're 90%.
Okay.
Yeah.
But is there any, how about for students? For those who are eligible?
Again, I don't have those numbers.
Is that because they don't give you the numbers or because you got to report them in, or how's it done?
I would not know those numbers because we don't ask for that information. I could only ask the county to tell us what our percentage is. Again, I think it would be for the entire county, not just for our school district.
Well, because it's by zip code. And,
correct.
And other like so. You do not mandate that staff or students have?
No, I do not.
Could you mandate that? Is that within the authority of the Auburn school? I'm not saying would you do it. That's my second question, by the way. Is that something that has to be done by Albany, or can the Auburn school district require vaccinations?
And again, we can do things for employment purposes, but not children. Okay. I think that would have to come from the governor, which we're already hearing rumors that California may be mandating vaccinations for children starting in the fall, which poses the question, what are we doing here in New York State? And I've already got people asking me that question. I do not have an answer.
Okay. But could the district unilaterally say to employees, obviously the mayor of New York City just laid off a number of, I don't think he laid off, I think he fired a whole group of people yesterday because they didn't get vaccinated. Is that something within the discretion of the school board?
No, I would not be firing people, nor do I think I have the discretion. Again, for tenuring teachers, I do know school districts that they're not tenuring teachers because of not being vaccinated. We are not doing that practice in Auburn. Okay. Again, it's a choice.
So I know there's a little bit of confusion, maybe not as much for schools, because we just had the mayor on, and the city has got employees, and then there's questions about people who come to meetings. What is the district's policy for masks?
It has not changed for school districts in New York State. All staff members, all students, all visitors have to have a mask on inside our school buildings.
But that's going to be re-reviewed by Governor Hochul when?
First week in March, so probably March 4th. We're expecting her to review that. Many states are dropping the mask mandate, have already dropped it or dropping it around the March 5th date. So, we're waiting in anticipation to see what our governor is going to do.
So I want to go back to masks in a second, but I do now it's a free-for-all where people can choose. You can't choose here. You have to wear a mask. You walked in, the mayor walked in. All the students here, we're different. I'll grant you that. But if you walk into Wegmans or a store, pizza place, wherever, it's a free-for-all. People get to choose that. So with that, are you thinking you're going to have an uptick, since this mask mandate was released in the last couple of days, last week, that you'll have an uptick in cases in schools in the next week or so?
I do not foresee an uptick for multiple reasons, but number one is people just aren't reporting anymore. So, if it's not mandatory to report.
So unless you're unvaccinated and you end up in the hospital,
I think
let's be blunt.
Right. And there are parents that are notifying our nurses if their children do come down with COVID, or if one of our staff members do, they still follow our protocols.
So March 4th comes around and Kathy Hochul says it's up to all 762 districts. Am I roughly?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. It's all up to all of you. What does Auburn do?
Again, if she makes it, it would become optional.
So what would you recommend to the Board of Education? I'm assuming the board's going to have this discussion before March 4th. So only because you're going to have to be able to react immediately one way or the other. What would be the staff recommendation? Do you continue with masks in school, or do you discontinue it and let it be by choice?
My personal is, and again, I do believe it's the superintendent's choice in all school districts because there are reopening plans. I would recommend that it become optional at that time.
You do? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think masks work, though?
I do. I do, but I think social distancing does as well. And we would still continue to social distance in our school. we would continue to keep our desks at least over 3 feet apart from each other. Again, one thing that we haven't seen spreads in schools, and I think that's because of social distancing and masking, but we also eat in the cafeteria with our masks off. So there are a lot of times where our masks are off. Again, we could go to optional, and if something seemed to spike, then we could always reenact. But at some point, we got to get back to the normalcy piece.
So what about those children whose parents tell them you're going to have to wear a mask in there?
And they most certainly can wear a mask. That's why it's optional.
Okay.
I think there would be staff members that still would wear masks. I get it that we have adults who may be teachers who have elderly parents that want to continue to keep themselves protected. I would encourage them to wear masks if they still needed to.
So one of the bigger challenges you've had has been this issue of bus drivers. Mm-hmm. So what's the issue, other than they're not enough?
Well, again, that really is the issue, is that there's not enough.
So are they district employees? Or
no, they work for First Student, who we subcontract our bus services with. We've had multiple bus drivers quit over the past month and a half.
Why? Why are they quitting?
A lot of different reasons.
Is there
sick of the COVID mandates?
Are they mandated to have
masks? They've got to have. No, they don't have to. They don't have to be vaccinated. Okay. They do have to do the weekly testing though.
Okay.
So we provide the weekly testing for them. But I think it's a stress. I think you've seen the whole country completely stressed over the last couple of years. And I think it finally is getting to people, and they've had enough of it.
So what is the district doing to work to solve this? Because you've had at least one day where you've had to close all schools, and then there was a day you split between, I look over this way because that's where the middle school is. The middle school was shut down a day, and it flipped over to the high school so that you had enough bus drivers, correct?
Correct. So
you've had the one day. What can, not that it's your responsibility, but what can the district, maybe it is your responsibility, what is the district doing to solve the bus driver shortage, other than you're trying to get your new license?
I am.
There are districts where superintendents are driving the bus.
I've been driving.
Oh, you have?
I've been driving vans, students to Marcus Whitman. So
what is Marcus Whitman?
Marcus Whitman is a school district near Canandaigua. So myself and the dispatcher have been picking up a student at around 10 to 7 in the morning.
That's use of your time?
No, it is certainly not. It's about 5 hours out of my day taking the student to Marcus Whitman. Thank goodness, and a big plug to Southern Cayuga. They're helping us with the bus run, so we're only getting the student out to a meeting point, and they're taking them for us because they have students out that way. So, but for about a month period, I had to do that along with Carol Ann DeFabio, my dispatcher, rode with me. But again, it's just making sure that we can provide programs for our kids.
Because you can't have a child alone for that long at the time, or just part of the process?
Yeah, just again, it's just for security purposes.
So do you see an end in sight on this?
So we're actually, Mayor Quill said that we all sat down and met. I'm working with Jeff Digert to see if possibly we could get some off-duty firemen or garbage truck drivers, snow plowers that have their CDL license to help us when we need more drivers. So we're trying to work out a way where the city and the school district can partner to give us more drivers.
So another item that's been in the regional media, but I don't know necessarily here, is there a shortage of teachers?
There's been a shortage of teachers for quite a few years now. It's specific technology teachers.
Well, I was going to say there's specific to specific funneled classes,
correct.
Tech teachers, a specific language.
Yeah, languages, math at the secondary level, special education at the secondary level.
So that's just so that's not a COVID-related issue right now. It's more of, we've always had this issue.
It's just multiplying now.
Yeah. What is the book All Boys Aren't Blue about?
It is about a young man who, it's a memoir of his life. He is a person of color and is gay, and he pretty much tells his whole story.
So you have in the last month or so, you have received, it might be a little bit over a month, but you have received a complaint that it is in the high school library, correct?
Yeah, we've had about 8 complaints, written complaints.
At first, they were not written complaints.
Correct.
Because interesting enough, when there were no written complaints, nobody had taken out the book.
Correct. The book had not been taken out from
now that
September
you have written
through, yes.
complaints, there's a waiting list of at least 10. Am I correct on that?
Correct.
So, which is interesting in its own, if you think that out. So how has the district responded to this complaint or any time? Have you ever you've been with the district now how long?
Since 2004.
Okay, so in 18 years, have you ever had a complaint about a book?
No, never.
Okay, so what's the district's policy and thus plan to deal with a complaint? Do you have to be a parent to complain, or can you be just anybody?
Actually, out of the 8 complaints, 2 complaints were from parents. All the other ones do not have children in our district.
So
they have grandchildren now.
Do they have standing?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
anybody can put a complaint.
No, I just didn't know if there's a policy.
Nope.
You have to have a child.
No.
So you could have a child in the elementary school and still complain about a high school
Correct.
book, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
Okay. So district responded. Did you have a 2004? Oddly enough, the year you started. Policy. What is the policy?
So the policy is when a written complaint comes to the superintendent, I put together a committee.
So who will sit on the committee?
So that has to sit on the committee is the high school librarian and the high school principal.
Okay.
So I believe there's 10 people on this committee that we put together. They met for the first time yesterday afternoon. The committee is going to read the book. And
have you read the book?
I have not read the entire book.
Have you read? Well, okay, then have you read the 10
Correct.
specific pages?
Correct. Yeah.
I thought the last story I read, one of the complaints is, maybe it is not one of the complaints, but somebody said they're fine with the book except for 10 narrow pages.
Yes, because it's sexually explicit.
Okay. So they will read the book. So are you buying extra copies of the book?
We did. We did.
Again.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
So the committee then, are these open meetings for this committee?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all of our committee meetings are open.
Okay. So what will the committee do?
The committee's going to read the book, and then they're going to come together again after February break. I don't know if they've set the date or not. And they are going to go through and they're going to review the policy to see if the book meets the requirements of the policy. They'll make a recommendation on whether the book should stay on the shelf or we should look at removing it. And that recommendation will go to the Board of Education. The Board of Education will vote.
So they will have to vote. The 8 current members will have to vote one way or the other.
Correct. And again, when it comes to curriculum, that's one thing that our board actually does. Renaming of schools and curriculum. The curriculum that's in our school, our board always approves. They may not necessarily approve all the library books that come into our district, but they do have the overview of the curriculum.
So their recommendation, this committee's recommendations will be public.
Yes, it'll be read at the board meeting.
And so you'll get that, and then if there's a determination, so oddly enough, after the last story in the Citizen that ran on this, Nightline did a special. I don't know if you heard.
No, I didn't.
With the author.
Okay.
And with a parents group, a national parents group, because apparently this is a national issue, which I'm sure the guy's publisher is loving because all it does is sell books for him.
And he's already said that. He's on his 5th edition already.
Right. So in that particular case, the question has been asked of those parents, and I would ask you the same question. Can a parent say, I don't want my child to take this book out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So again,
so there are steps that a parent can take
right,
to make
in
sure.
In English classes, sometimes we may read a controversial book to do a project or a report on. We usually send notifications out. If parents wish not to have them read that book, we will pick another one for the student. The same thing in the library. Again, parents have the ultimate say in what their children should be doing or should not be doing.
So you also got in the last 3 weeks budget numbers from the governor. it does look like that state spending has gone up about $2.1 billion. How did Auburn make out overall?
We made out very well.
Okay.
We received about almost $4 million increase in foundation aid, which is around 11%. I think Moravia got 6%. Then every other school district in our county received 3%. The reason is because they're already fully funded.
So let's take foundation aid first and then go to other, because in essence, it looks like you're going to get about $8 million overall when you take foundation aid plus other aid, correct?
Not quite that higy.
Okay, because I have regular aid. I have a 9% increase for the district at $14.3 million.
Yeah.
4.3 million plus the $4 million for the 11% increase. So that's about 8.5.
Yeah, we're going to get about a $4 million overall.
Okay, all right. So let's deal with foundation aid first. So she's increased it by 1.6. This is the 1.6 billion. This is the second of a 3-year plan to increase it over a 3-year period. Correct. All right. The result is that 11%, roughly 11+%. That's $4 million. Does that mean the formula has been fixed for Auburn?
No.
Okay. So while this year is an election year, as we all know, there might be an increase this year. There is no guarantee that there would be an increase next year.
Correct.
And rarely does school district funding go down. But if it doesn't increase next year, your problem is not solved, correct?
Correct.
Is your problem not solved even if they increase it, but they don't fix the formula?
Correct.
Okay. So politically, is it politically realistic at this stage to think that the formula is going to be fixed this year in an election year where everybody wants to please everybody?
I don't believe the formula is going to be fixed. I do believe that they're giving us more money because it is an election year. And with the hold harmless, we're trying to get some bills passed that we can get the money even sooner because, again, that hold harmless piece is a big piece.
People may not, when I think hold harmless, I think of my insurance company. Explain, hold harmless for government funding is different.
So if we're receiving $35 million in foundation aid, the next year they can't lower that. So we'll always at least keep $35 million, even if it's frozen. They won't take it away from us. That holds us harmless, that we're not losing money. The problem is for a school district like Auburn, when you've been underfunded for 12 years, 1 year doesn't make a difference. So with all these other school districts in our county that have been receiving more foundation aid than they should be, that hold harmless continues to help them and increases the gap of what we're not receiving compared to them. So if another school district's going to be receiving $5 million total in foundation aid, they're already at $7 million. We're $8 million under what we're supposed to be getting in foundation aid. So that hold harmless just keeps you from losing.
And your hope is that will be passed.
Correct. Well, yeah.
Is
absolutely.
that a permanent passage of hold harmless or just a temporary each year?
Well, they haven't changed it many years. We've never seen a school district get less money.
So where are you in the budget process right now?
We have a budget workshop this evening.
Okay, so today's the 15th. Does that mean that there's a budget that's being presented to the board?
No.
When will the public and the board get a budget?
Probably in end of March, early April.
So whether you're getting my 8 or your 4, it doesn't matter. But your 4, if you're getting about 4.4, 4.3, do you see in this new budget, you do not see that you will have to make staffing or budget cuts in that, correct?
No, but I believe we'll be using a lot of fund balance.
You will still.
Mm-hmm.
So do you see any new initiatives being unveiled at this stage because you just don't have the money for it?
Well, there's some things I'm going to try to reshuffle, some programming and some staff, but we do need some more addition. We do need a few teachers for some programs that we're looking at trying to run because of the social emotional needs of our children and the loss of education for the last 2 years. So for the learning loss and for some of the social emotional, we still need to add some things to our budget. But Other parts we're going to try to reshuffle and use existing resources.
And we're going to hopefully have you here on April 5th with Lisa Green,
Correct,
your business officer, to talk about the budget.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk about two items. I think we only have time for one. One is the school district hired Joseph Shepard, a school board member. Am I correct?
Correct.
Last fall, and that announced him as a school board member, and he has not been replaced.
Correct.
Why not?
The board went out and voted, and they voted to keep the position vacant.
In essence, 4-4. It sounds
Yes,
like four were willing to fill it, 4 were not willing to fill it.
And of course, you need 5 votes.
You need 5 votes. So this is a regular issue, not only for Auburn, but Auburn it comes up on a regular basis. I mean, I'm thinking in the 18 years you've been with the district, more than a handful of school board members have left midterm for whatever. They got a new job, they moved outside the city of Auburn, whole group. Why is there not a schedule being presented to the board that says, listen, if somebody resigns by September 1st, X happens. If it's December 1st, Y happens. After January 1st, it's Z happens. Why is there not a plan? Because if you're from the outside, it looks like it's whoever can put a majority of the votes together to get and maneuver to get their person on the board.
Because there's a law established already. So you put a policy in place, the law still trumps any policy.
So what's the law?
The law says that if a board member leaves during the course of the school year, that the board has 3 different choices to make. One is they can leave it vacant. One, they can do a special election. Or number 3.
No, I understand that, but why can't they codify that as to say this is our policy, so that if you don't do it, you have to explain to the public why you're not following your schedule?
And again, that's up to the Board of Education. I would love to see that. To me, and I was very vocal on this, is that, the board seat belongs to the community. It's our taxpayers. We listen to what our community wants. And that is a position that a community member should be sitting in.
So the question is, has this board decided not to take up a review of that policy?
I don't think they've even brought the discussion up to do that.
So I know you have 3 school board, and I want to finish up right there. We won't get into May elections. You'll be back in April. We'll talk about that. Because there's still time for people to file at that time. You got Bill Andre, Jeff Gasper, and Danielle Wood, who are all up this year. So you'll have 4 spots open. Is it the first place winner or the last place winner that gets the remaining term of Mr. Shepard?
It would be the 4th highest vote getter.
Okay. So the first 3 will get 3-year terms?
Correct.
Okay. So we're going to have you back in a little over a month and a half, with Lisa Green to talk about the budget. And by that time, will you have a report on the book by that time? Would you?
We definitely should have a report on the book and the budget.
Okay. So we're going to talk about budget and school board.
It's 30 minutes up already.
It is up already.
We could have gone a couple hours.
We can, and there are enough things on your agenda. So, but we do want to thank you. You've been very gracious with your time here at the college. We do appreciate that. Our guest has been the Auburn Superintendent of Schools, Jeff Pirozzolo, and we want to thank him for his general update. We'll get more specifically on the budget with Lisa Green on, I think it's April 5th, we'll have you in. But in the meantime, we want to thank you for your time. On Thursday, we'll be back with 2 Inside Governments. We mentioned before that David Gould, the new chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature, who's starting his first term, oddly enough, as well, will be in here to give us a county update. And secondly, we will have Kathleen Cuddy, the public health director for the county of Cayuga, to talk not only about COVID and where the county is on this, whether it comes to masks and vaccines and boosters, but also talk about flu season and how the county is dealing with that. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that you can send us your thoughts and questions for future guests to Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page. You can send your questions by email to cozguytho@aol.com or by mail to Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cayuga Community College. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a good night. Have a great tomorrow. Be safe and mask up.